All right, let's talk about meetings. Specifically, how to have fewer, better ones. Today, we're going to break down a really powerful system designed to do just that, to help you cut down on the noise and seriously boost your team's productivity. So, let's dive right in.
Does this look familiar? I bet it does. That calendar that looks like a losing game of Tetris just slammed with stand-ups, syncs, and status checks. It's that sinking feeling, right? Where you realize you spend your entire day talking about doing the work instead of, actually doing the work.
And this quote, man, it just hits the nail on the head. We've created this culture of interruption where we're constantly poking each other for updates. But what if those updates were just there, baked right into the way we work? So the big question is, how do we flip that script?
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to really diagnose the problem with meetings. Then I'll show you how to turn your project board into your team's #1 communicator. We'll lay out a super clear framework for who does what, figure out a protocol for when things inevitably get stuck, and finally, I'll give you a concrete blueprint to actually put this all into action.
Okay, first up, let's talk about the real problem with meetings, or as I like to call it, why we're always trapped in this endless cycle of syncing up. I mean, just think about it for a second. Every single one of these meetings, from the daily stand-up to that random Slack message, it only exists to answer a question that our tools should already be answering for us. We book a meeting because we can't just glance at our board and know what's going on. These meetings, they're basically a tax you pay for a lack of clarity. Which brings us right to the core of the solution. Let the board talk. The whole goal here is to transform your project board from just a boring to-do list into a living, breathing, single source of truth for everybody on the team. This right here, this is the guiding principle. An honest board is one that reflects reality, moment by moment. And when you have that, you suddenly have a communication system that's on 24/7. You don't have to ask what someone's working on. You can just see it. The board is always broadcasting the status for you.
So, how do you actually build this honest board? Well, it really comes down to discipline and a few rules that are honestly non-negotiable. One task in progress per person, that forces focus, no more juggling. Scoping tasks to about a day's worth of work, that's huge, because it means a task that hasn't moved for 24 hours isn't just a little behind, it's a flare going up that something's wrong. And this isn't micromanagement, it's about creating a system that keeps everyone honest.
Okay, so a disciplined board is the first piece of the puzzle. But what good is a system that signals problems if nobody knows whose job it is to fix them? That's where the second piece comes in, defining roles with total clarity, using something called the player, captain, coach framework. First up, you've got your player. This is your developer, your designer, the person actually doing the work. Their job is simple and focused. Grab a task and own it, completely, from start to finish. This gives them the freedom to do their best work, without a ton of distractions. Next up is the captain. Think of the captain as the team's technical rock. This is your tech lead. Their focus is on how the work gets done, the architecture, the technical decisions, and most importantly, they are the first person a player goes to when they get stuck. And finally, there's the coach. This is your project lead or product manager. They own the what and the why. They're looking at the big picture, making the tough calls on scope and priorities, and they're the ones who talk to stakeholders. With these three roles, there's never any confusion about who to ask about what. So now, with these roles in place, a really simple but powerful rule for communication emerges. Async communication, the board, comments, docs, that's your default. That's for information. Meetings, sync communication, that becomes a special tool you pull out only when you need it. Think of it for the heavy-duty stuff. Complex problem solving, whiteboarding, or working through a conflict. Okay, this all sounds great when things are going smoothly, but what happens when they're not? An async-first system absolutely needs a super clear, predictable way to handle problems and handle them fast. That's where the blocker escalation path comes in. So here's how it works. The player hits a wall. They don't just sit there. They document the problem right on the task and immediately flag the captain. The captain jumps in to solve the technical issue. But what if it's not a technical problem? What if it's about scope or priority? The captain then bumps it up to the coach, who has the final say. See how clean that is? No guesswork, just a clear chain of responsibility. And what kicks this whole process off? This is the best part. It's not a frantic Slack message. It's the board itself. Remember that rule about one-day tasks? This is where it pays off big time. A task that sits still for more than a day is an automatic silent alarm. It's an impartial signal that says, hey, look over here. And there's a ticking clock. The whole team is aiming to get any blocker resolved within just 24 hours. Now, why so strict? Because when you're building a system on daily progress, a single stalled task is a threat to the entire team's momentum. Speed is everything.
So you're probably thinking, okay, this all sounds good in theory, but how do I actually do it? I got you. Let's get into the final section, your practical, step-by-step blueprint for making this happen and taking back your calendar.
Here are 5 concrete steps. First, do an audit of your calendar. Be ruthless. For every recurring meeting, ask, what question is this meeting trying to answer? Second, be honest about which of those questions could be answered by just looking at the board. Third, officially assign those coach, captain, and player roles. Make it public. Fourth, actually write down your escalation plan. And finally, the most important step, just try it. Run a 2-week experiment. Cancel the meetings that seem replaceable and see what happens. It's not a permanent change. It's just a test.
Now, I want to be super clear about something. This is not a war on meetings. Meetings for brainstorming, for building team culture, for having tough conversations, those are absolutely vital. The goal here is to get rid of the unnecessary ones, the meetings that are just attacks on your time because your system isn't transparent. The real goal is intentionality. And that really brings us to the last and maybe most important question of all. If you could get back all those hours your team spends every single week just talking about the work, what could you actually build? What amazing problems could you solve? That right there is the real promise of working async first.